I mean, I do remember actually my uncle telling me about pike in the lake, and he fished, and I'm sure, yeah, I remember being told, about these amazing teeth that these things had, and you have to be careful not to get your fingers in the way, and things like that. So I'm sure he fished.
And you have monster pike that you get to the side and then they disappear. The largest I've actually caught is about 15 pounds, which on char tackle is quite something. It's very difficult to get actually into the net. But you do get some very strange things when you're char fishing, because I once had a bite on one side and I went to pull it in, and the fish got off and it took my spinner with it. So there was just a line with no spinner on, but just after that the pole on the other side rang, and I pulled that up, and when I took the fish off, it had two spinners in its mouth. It had the spinner that it took from the other side off and got away with.
So it's possible to catch the same fish several times by different anglers. So that fish is stressed, and occasionally big dead pike do turn up in Windermere, just come floating to the surface. They've just had enough. They've had too much handling, too much pressure put on them, they conk out too many times out of the water. But generally speaking, the pike angling has probably replaced the traditional trout angling. That's another huge difference I've seen on Windermere and Coniston during my 17 years on the Leven catchment.
Chironomid nymphs, these are the non-biting midges that live on Windermere. You'll get those hatching off round the middle of the day, and you'll often see an occasional trout rise. So they haven't altogether gone, and we do pick them up when we're fishing dead baits for pike, interestingly. But the fish that we used to catch were probably 8, 10, 12 inches long, 14 inches sometimes. Nice trout. We don't seem to see those these days. Maybe they're just behaving differently, I don't know. But instead, the fish we catch are monsters. We get 8-pounders most years, and early in the year these will pick up a piece of mackerel fished on the bottom rather than the fly fished on the surface.
So what are these monsters?
These are trout. These are wild. These are wild brown trout. There are some very big brown trout. There's a unique strain, not unique to the Lake District, because they're pretty widespread in big wild waters. A strain of brown trout called ferox, which the Victorians held in great high regard.
I do remember when, if we were fishing from a boat in the south part of the lake and you got down into the beginning of the River Leven, that we may catch eels as well, which we didn't want to catch because they wriggled and tangled the lines, and you had to get hold of them and take them off, and that was required a certain degree of bravery to get hold of this slimy wriggling eel. So we were really just have to perch, and maybe one of the boys would say, I'm going to try and catch a pike, but we didn't know much about pike. In fact, there were stories about pike, that if you swam near reed beds, the pike used to hide in them and they would come out and take lumps out of you or something like that.